Me and my buddy were on a routine hunting trip to a new area in the Sierras, and we encountered what I believe was a Bigfoot.
It turns, and I shot it right here. Hit it right here as it turned, and it still had its hands out, and we saw dust and everything.
Then we got really, really scared. We decided that we needed to get out of there. And they're like, all right, let's go. And then, so what did we do with it?
I probably did something like this, and then we grabbed a bunch of stuff and we put it over it. Like big stuff. We hid it as much as you could hide it in 15 minutes.
The Sierra Nevadas are an epic mountain range full of majestic peaks, gorgeous lakes, and beautiful vistas. It hosts a plethora of wildlife, from deer, bears, and cougars. But this wondrous range also hosts reports of Sasquatch. In the previous episode, I covered the reports and chilling audio from the Lake Tahoe area. In this episode, we'll be going north, deeper into the Sierras, and away from the reach of tourists. The Plumas National Forest is an 1,100-acre forest in the northern Sierras, bordering the northern reaches of the Tahoe National Forest. While there aren't any standout points of interest in the Plumas National Forest, there are tons of trails and campgrounds to hike and stay at. This national forest is also ground zero for one of the most interesting cases in the history of Sasquatch, which set off a chain of events that affects the Sasquatch community to this day, all of which can be traced back to a single name: Justin Smeja. Justin Smeja's name alone is enough to elicit strong reactions from nearly everyone in the Sasquatch world. A quick Google search reveals that Justin is most known for an event from October of 2010, where Justin claims to have shot and killed 2 Sasquatch creatures. The Sierra Kills, as they've become known, are documented through 2 documentaries and various news outlets. They've also been a point of heated discussion online, with many calling Justin a liar, a hoaxer, or a jerk, among other things. I myself remember hearing the story when I was younger, and not knowing the details, I thought the matter of Sasquatch's existence was finally solved. But then the story faded away, and I heard nothing else about it. While making my series Bigfoot: The Road to Discovery, I was reminded of the story from my friend Todd Hale, and my interest in finding out what exactly happened was kindled. Preliminary research led me to believe that Justin Smeja was in prison, or possibly even deceased, and that his story was nothing but a hoax that had been conclusively debunked and swept under the rug. But as I talked to more people, I found out that not only was Justin not in prison, but that he was also alive and well. Over the course of several months, I managed to get a hold of Justin, and in August of 2024, I ventured to the alleged kill site. At that time, I was on the fence about the story, not knowing if Justin was telling the truth or not, or even what kind of a person Justin was. But I was driven on by my desire to know what had happened, firsthand, from the people who know Justin and from Justin himself, not from people's opinions on internet forums or people who have never talked to Justin at all. Throughout the course of a few days with him, and in the interview I conducted, he answered all of my questions, even some of the more uncomfortable ones, in a way that felt honest and genuine. At no point did I get the feeling that he was even trying to convince me that his story was true. This does not necessarily mean that he's telling the truth, but it is an important observation to make. So with my long preamble out of the way, I'll let Justin tell the story in his own words.
I'm Justin Smeja. I'm an electrician or a hunter-fisherman from California.
What was your introduction to the Sasquatch topic?
I had been hunting and fishing my whole life. I had never heard anything about Bigfoot. I didn't know that people thought that was a real thing. So when I was 24 years old, and me and my buddy were on a routine hunting trip to a new area in the Sierras, and we encountered what I believe was a Bigfoot. Left at, like probably 3 or 4 in the morning. We got out here. We drove up to a new area that we were checking out, and we were kind of our intention was to harvest a bear or a deer. We had a tag for a bear and we had a tag for a different area for deer. So we were on this hunting trip, and it was a really good day. It was one of those days where you're seeing a lot of deer. Everywhere we went, we saw deer, we saw elk, we saw antelope. It was like the peak of the migration. Everything was moving through. And we knew that we were going to get our animal probably. This is something that, happens like maybe once a year where you're actually going to be successful. Like you go hunting all the time. It doesn't mean you go killing all the time. And it doesn't mean like I'm only successful like once or twice briefly in a year. I might get a couple deer and then I might get a bear if I'm lucky. So this was in October of 2010. At the end of the day was pretty much wrapping up. We knew that we were probably about to harvest an animal. I mean, like you just kind of had that feeling, but we'd also seen deer after deer after deer, and we just hadn't found like the right one. And we were coming into this meadow that we pretty much knew that there was going to be a bear in. The reason we knew that there was going to be a bear in is because we had left some bait in it. So we'd left some attractant, and we knew that there would be a bear in this area. We came around the corner. Me and my buddy were driving. We were in an old Bronco, like a Bronco 2. We were both supposed to work the next morning. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I catch some movement, and we see it at the same time. We're driving, and I look and I see a hairy object. I thought it was a bear. I saw an animal and I was like, I said, oh, bear. I was like, hey, and then I look and then I see what was a Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know how to describe it any other way.
We were driving down this road, and we were about right, a little bit further than this when it got interesting. We knew that we had the bait right there, but you can't really see it till you're getting about right here. So we're driving in the truck right now. I'm the passenger, he's the driver, and we came up to right here. And right down there in this opening that is no longer. These trees have grown in the way. It's 14 years ago. Christmas tree, I think they say it grows like a foot a year. So we're talking about 14 years. That's looking like it's maybe 12 feet or so. So there was an opening right here where the truck was. And we were looking to see like the orange Home Depot bucket that had the bait in it. We knew it was somewhere around right here. We were looking for this opening. I'm here in the passenger seat. Then I'm like this, shooting out of the passenger seat, like open the door a little bit, maybe my foot was on the ground, whatever, but I'm right here. This is where it all happened. And I'm shooting this way. And it's standing right over there, but it's standing where it is right now. You can't even see it because there's so many trees that have grown over.
How far do you think?
So we'll go over there. I would say about 75 yards. I mean, almost in bow range, definitely in rifle range. I could see it very clearly through the scope. So we can go down to where it was standing at.
Sure.
It was right here. So all these trees went here. These trees went here. All right here. Yep. Let me see it through. Actually, it was right here because it was on a little bit of a berm.
And was it facing you, or was it?
Yeah. So like when we see it, we saw some movement, and then like it's like right here, and all of a sudden it comes to about right here, and it like just looks like this. It doesn't have like a, but it's like this. There's, then we see it move. You see it move. Then it kind of like its body language is like this. Whatever this means, I don't know. To me, it looks like don't shoot. To me, it looks like hey, whoa. But its hands like this. And then we're watching it. Maybe 10 seconds go by. We're talking a couple different things. Like and then it does this. Then it decides. I think that it's seen the rifle too much because I'm like pointing out the window. My buddy's like, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" Yeah, and I'm like kind of looking at it, and it's right here. And he's still got his hands up. And then I see it kind of like about 10 to 15 seconds has passed, and then it started to turn to be like, "Oh, like this motherfucker's gonna shoot me! Like something's wrong. He's not like," because everybody else should have just looked at it and been like, "Oh my god!" Instead of like putting the gun out the window and like a screeching stop. And so it's right here. So it turns. Because it's like, we knew it was about to run off and it was getting nervous. It turns and I shot it right here. It hit it right here as it turned and it still had its hands out and we saw dust and everything. Like we saw that like the impact was right here. It looked good. And then it hits the ground and it comes here. It stumbles, falls over right here, falls over again. And so it's barely able, we're moving the truck. So we end up driving down a little bit so that we can get a clearer view. And it's falling down. It can't even stay up right here. So it's tripping, falling. It's about right here. And we're just about to lose sight of it. It would have been right here. So we're just about to lose sight of it. And I got it pretty much, but it's just going straight away from me. It's like right here. It's falling. It's like this. And I have a shot like kind of like right here, straight up at that. It's sort of, but it's falling. And I got a shot. And then my buddy says, "What? There's more. Wait, there's more." And then right off of here, right off of this like upward slope, we're over there, but we see two little ones coming this way. And they're following the parent, which appeared at the time to be a male, but it was just a big ass animal. And these two young ones are following it. And so I'm confused. I don't shoot because I heard, "Wait, don't shoot, there's more." And then now I'm watching these little ones. So this big one ends up getting out of here. It gets out of sight, gets past this. I can't see it anymore. And now we can see the little ones. So now we're on foot. We have lost the big one. He came up here. He went right around the corner and we're like we knew that it was pretty much right over there. The little ones, so we'd seen them disappear right here. So now we're on foot. We're moving. We're looking for the big one that we've heard him crash. He was right in here somewhere. But we've seen the little ones. Now they disappeared. And then we get around this corner. So we have our guns. Jack's got his binoculars. I think he didn't even grab his gun because he was so like, we're just looking for a dead one. We're not even looking to shoot another one right now. We're in recovery mode. And then we get about right here. And then the little one pops up right there. The little one pops up right there. And they're not together. Well, I mean, they're together, but they were communicating. Like, and it would be like, and it was so obvious. Like, "Where's Dad? Like, have you seen him?" No. Okay. And then they split up. They go different ways. I know that the big one's pretty much right here because they're looking kind of right here. It could be in this big thing or it could be down there, but I know it's right here. It's dead. It crashed. It could have gone a little bit further. It's pretty close. And so Jack says, "Well, I'll go that way down by those alders. Then you go in this, and then let me know when you find it." I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Don't shoot the little ones." I was like, yeah, we're not gonna shoot the little ones." He's like, "Are you sure though?" Like, and he's like, "Don't do it." Like, I was like, "Yeah, no, I won't. It's bad, right?" Like, yeah, they're really little. They're just like, it's not good. So we separate. He goes that way. I go over here. Little ones, we haven't seen them for a little bit. Then we go down here. So I go up in these ways. I don't find nothing. I haven't found blood. I can kind of see like some movement in the grass and all this stuff, but I had not like for sure found the big one. I know that it's here though. Like there's a feeling of like it's just behind that tree or just behind here or whatever. Then I get to about right here. So I've cleared this. Jack's way over here on the other side of the alders, and I see the little ones again. And I spent, I don't know, 5 minutes here. One of them popped up here, one of them popped up here. They seemed to have some sort of exchange, just sound, kind of like, where are you? Ah, ah, ah. And then it kind of reply, ah, ah, ah. Then they would like kind of separate. Like it was obvious, like, oh, you haven't found it? Did you check by this tree? Did you check by the stump? But now I've just spent like 5-7 minutes with the little ones, just myself. Like one's over there, and I observed them and watched them a little bit. So more determined to find the big one that I know is right here.
But were you scared or?
Well, it was like a terrifying thing to see like a animal or a thing that you don't recognize.
Yeah.
So at the moment, my adrenaline was definitely going like real good. There was excitement. I don't know that there was fear.
How was the vegetation back then?
None of this was here. It was different, and there was a trail right here that you'll see remnants of the trail. Like, this whole tree wasn't here, obviously, but like, so I was actually on a trail right here that you'll see in a sec. But this, I would say like relatively the same, but different because right there was a trail, and you could tell how some years there could be a trail right here, and if we walked that 30 more times. So here's where I ended up. I know Jack's over that hill right now. He's over there. I've seen his shadow. I've seen him trying to get on the other side of this because he thinks it might be in here or over here. I've checked up here. I've seen the little ones. I'm watching them for 5-7 minutes. Now I get here, and it's about this dark here. Even though the sun's like a little bit higher, but this is as dark as it's going to be in 30 minutes from now, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's about this dark. It's a little bit darker. And the little one is right here. This other one appears. And right where that little tree is, he comes down and stands there. And then I'm like, okay, like this is like Jack's gone. I should probably shoot one of these. So I kind of like take a couple steps towards it. And I got my rifle. I mean, like it's, I don't know, that far, whatever that is, 22 feet. And at a certain point, I was like, this is my only chance. I gotta shoot one. And then I proved, like, you gotta shoot one of these things. So I shoot it right there, and then it falls, ends up about like right here. And I'm like, kind of like picturing it. And it's like all like watching it, and then yeah, I stand on it, and it's like, you know, kind of like flopping or whatever, like a fish. And then it dies inside, whatever. But then so now it's dead. It's kind of rolling around. I'm kind of picking it up. I'm kind of like trying to figure out if. Then this is when I had it, and I picked it up just because there was like some loose skin there, and so like that's why I'm holding it like this by the chest. But like I picked it up and looking at him, and I'm like, huh. And I got lost. I was just like, is this this looks a little bit like a blackhead, but not. I mean, he wasn't in person, but it looked a little bit like something you shouldn't hunt. And then I see Jack right over there, and he's like, "What the f did you do?" And I was like, And I'm like having a moment, like he's like, "What did you do?" It's like, "Look at it." And then I toss it like right over, and he comes down, and it's just sitting there, and it hits his feet. He's standing right here. I was like, I don't know if we said anything. I was like, well, what do we do now? And we're talking about it. We got like the warden. We know, we just saw him. He's over there several miles, but we have to pass him to get out. So we're trying to figure out like, what are we gonna do? I said, you know, we just need to get out of here. We need to get out of here right now. And he said, why did you shoot one of the little ones? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you know, the big one's dead right here. And that was also like the topic is like, you know, he's dead. He's like, right here. I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, I searched all over there. Like I jumped some quail. He's like, yeah, it's got to be either right here because it either fell like right here or it fell up there, then could have ended up down there. So we think it's in this.
Where did you bury it at?
It was dead here. And we talked about it. We kind of had an argument. There's like some friction. And then we're talking about like, all right, we need to get out of here. We need to go. We just shot twice. Somebody's gonna come. So then I say, all right, well, let's just leave it here. We got to get away from the situation because the idea is somebody's gonna come down this road and they're just gonna see our car and they're gonna see us here. Got to get away from the situation. I'm like, all right, so let's hide it. Let's hide it immediately. So I go to right here. And you could see even like a cut mark from like, this is where I brought the other groups to say like to try to dig. And so I brought it right here and put it right here. I probably did something like this, and like it created a hole. We were moving stuff. I was using the butt of the gun. Then we grabbed a bunch of stuff and we put it over it. Like big stuff. It's not like, I mean, we hit it as much as you could hide it in 15 minutes. 15 minutes of grabbing stuff, like, all right, like breaking branches. We had like big rocks like that size, and like we had like some big stumps. So we put it all over, like it's like this big. And we got all this shit on top of it. But then we're like, all right, come back tomorrow without guns. We'll just act like we're some campers, throw it in like a bag, and we'll drive out of here. And the idea was to come back like the next day, the day after that. We knew that we had to be at work, so then we showed up at work and we act like nothing happened, kind of. But then the storm hit. And so when we came back here, there was this much snow here. Everywhere. We didn't know if we were here or if we were like, it all looked the same. So when we dug here, we dug there, we dug there. We didn't even know, like we could see like tops of the bush. We had no idea if we were like here or all the way over there where you see, because the snow, it was white. It just all looked the same. It's literally this high after 1 week of snow, like 3 feet dumping at this.
And these all these bushes were here back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This alder farm thing, it all looked the same. Looked the same then. It's only like a couple feet bigger or wider. Like the trail used to be a little bit more defined, but it probably is on busy years. Right there. That's where it was. That's where it was left.
So this happened a long time ago, and I've recounted this lots of times, but not recently.
Sure.
It's hard to justify some of the actions from just trying to be a decent person.
How do you feel being in this spot again?
This spot feels like feels special. It feels like a place that knows me and I know it. A lot of memories, a lot of nightmares, a lot of base core memories. I enjoy being here, and I feel grateful for being able to see more of reality, more of what's there, I guess. Yeah, I'm grateful for the experience. I don't know, if I could wave a wand and have it never happen, then I guess I would just probably have it never happen, because I feel like I spent a lot of unproductive hours on this. I think. Yeah, it depends on the day you ask me, but I guess if none of it could happen, I bet I'd be really successful. But I like my life the way it is. You can come to your own conclusions. I'm not going to judge you either way on, like, you don't need to be like, hey, I believe you, now we could be friends because you seem like a reputable guy. And well, just like, you drove this far because this is important to you.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I will not waste your time, and it's not interesting to me to meet and hang out like this or like do whatever. I have a busy life. My life's good. I don't get me wrong, it's interesting to meet you and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I don't got time for a joke.
There's a lot to take in about Justin's story, even if you do accept the existence of Sasquatch. And depending on one's personal beliefs about the nature of Sasquatch, it's easy to see why there is so much divided opinion on Justin's actions. Yet in 2010, this event was far less controversial, and was the impetus for a coordinated research effort. To understand this, we need to visit the days following the Sierra kills. The aftermath of the event found Justin and his hunting partner driving home silently. They intended to return for the body they had hastily buried the following weekend, but a storm swept through and covered the area in at least 8 feet of snow. Returning, at least in the short term, was not possible. Yet being perplexed at his own experience and desiring answers, Justin sought out the advice of people online.
My name is Ken Walker. I'm a taxidermist, hunting guide, bear hunter. I travel the world and hunt. I travel the world and do taxidermy teaching. I do seminars for taxidermy and competition taxidermy. So that's kind of what I do. I have a name you can Google. Justin made a post on a taxidermy forum at a time when I was really into finding out as much as I could about Bigfoot and Sasquatch. I was quite early in my search, actually, and I was quite naive in a lot of ways, but I had read an awful lot up to that point. And there was the usual discussion where some people swear it was real. It was, other people said you're full of it and making fun of the other guys. And suddenly Justin, and I can't remember his username at the time, but he chimed in and says, well, you guys might want to call bullshit. He said, but I shot one 2 weeks ago. And he said, and I know I hit it because I heard it go down. It sounded like a car crash and he was going on. And I immediately sent him a private message and I says, can I call you? So he sent me his phone number and I called him up and he told me the story, of it. And then, told the story of the one coming out on the road doing this sort of thing. And then his, where he shot it and the caliber he shot it with, which was pretty light for something like that. And then encountering the young ones and then actually shooting one of the young ones. And so I got pretty excited because I figured that there was an opportunity to have somebody go and look and maybe find the smoking gun. I knew he was telling the truth. I'm a pretty hard sell. If a salesman comes to the door of my house, he's wasting his time. If I don't want to buy something, I ain't buying it. And I'm not going to buy it on impulse. I'm not easy to sell things to. I'm not dumb. But in this case, there was everything told me. So then what I did, I'm going to keep trying until, I'm going to keep scratching at this until it bleeds. 2 weeks behind the shooting, I figure we got in the fall, we're definitely going to have bones, if nothing else. I don't think anything would eat a Sasquatch, so probably would have a slightly smelly body, but up in that altitude, it would be preserved. And 2 weeks would be nothing. You would have a scientific specimen. You'd have a type specimen. So I called up a researcher. I'm not going to mention this guy's name. I'm just not. But I called him up and I told him, I said, look, I'm 2 weeks behind the shooting, but I'm in no position to buy a plane ticket and fly down to the Sierra Nevadas. And I says, you guys do great work. Can you contact this guy? And so I was pretty excited because I figured that we might actually get something out of this. So anyways, they called me back and, Justin sent me a message and he said, I don't really want any of these hippies running around my hunting area. And so I was telling him, I said, no, these guys aren't hippies, man. These are guys that know what they're doing. And you really need to do this regardless,
So the way I heard about Justin was from a friend of a friend. Somebody had told me that Justin, or this person, had shot a Sasquatch. And of course, being into research, I jumped on it and started doing my research and started making phone calls until I found out who. And I believe that's when I first talked to Ken Walker. My initial reaction to this story was probably one of skepticism, because I've been in this for a long, long time, and most of the stories turn out to be nothing, a big to-do about nothing. So there was skepticism, but there's always that element of maybe. So I kind of approached it with that, hopeful, but not expecting anything. So in my initial talks with Justin, I tried to stress the importance of going back to the site and trying to recover or locate any evidence. And I said a lot of things to him to try to motivate him. Life-changing things like this could be a Sasquatch, because at the time he was coming off to me like, hell, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the hell I shot. This thing looked like a human. Almost like he had no perception of Bigfoot, which was kind of weird. It was almost like he hadn't been, which I find really hard to believe growing up in Northern California, being a hunter. I know he's heard of Bigfoot, but he was actually articulating to me that he didn't have much knowledge of Bigfoot, or that never really came into his brain at that time, which is probably the first red flag I had, because everybody that lives in Northern California that's a hunter has heard of Bigfoot because of the Patterson-Gimlin film. I mean, that happened in Northern California. So, like I said, as red flags go, that was probably the first one for me.
Okay, so after the shooting, then there was this huge storm and we weren't able to get like back up there. The roads were closed, the highways were closed. We tried to go like 2 or 3 days after the shooting. We weren't able to get back up there because there was like 3-4 feet of snow on the ground at that point. We made it back 4 or 5 weeks later, feeling like 100% that there was going to be like, the body was going to be there. It had snowed right after the shooting and we had put a bunch of heavy stuff on top of it and like buried it fairly good, I thought. So we knew it was going to be there. We were going up there to pick up the body. It was really simple. Me and Derek had started talking on the phone and he was telling me as soon as the roads are clear, as soon as you can get up there. I was like, yeah, it's no problem. I can like bring you like a skull or a hand or whatever. I'm not sure what it'll look like. It might be like eaten up a little bit, but it'll be in good shape. We'll send you like a big hunk of it, maybe a skull. So we try to get back up there and it's just hell. I mean, every weekend, every week we try to go back up there, but there's just too much snow. By the time we finally get up there, I take my hound, and it's like a cadaver dog, but it's like trained to find bears and deer and dead shit. So when we get back there, like there's 3-4 feet of snow on the ground. It all looks different. We didn't even know where we were. So we had a good idea that it's right over here, it's right over here, 20 feet this way, 20 feet that way. So we're digging. We can't find it. We can't find anything. Eventually the dog hits on this one spot. Then we dig down there. Then we found like some hair, a little bit of meat, some flesh, some fat, like just like a part of it, some hair, some meat, some flesh, some meat. But we were able to get like a fairly good sample, like a big piece of it. And then I think I sent it to Derek Randall's. And I think I sent it to Tyler, and I sent it to Melba, and about 14 other people. I would just cut a piece off and like, okay, cool, send that to the DNA diagnostics. Okay, cool, send it this to the DNA. So we sent it out to, I don't know, like 20 places tested it. And they said different things.
So after I initially talked to Justin, I was convinced enough to throw some resources into it. So I reached out to Jeff Meldrum and John Mayanshinsky, and I reached out to Bart Catino, I reached out to Paul Graves, and I reached out to James Bobo Fay, and kind of gave him an overview of what was happening, and told him that I had planned to go to the sea areas to the kill site and organize a bit of an expedition to look around for what could be there. And so that's how that happened. And then I just figured out the allotted days and we went.
My name is Bart Catino, longtime Bigfoot researcher, about 2 decades. My personal life, I'm a financial professional, about 1.5 decades. Being skeptical by nature, absolutely at that point from personal perspective, I know that these things exist. The Bigfoot field, I think 90+% of it is hoaxing. It's bad research. The evidence record is frankly embarrassing. So I tend to realistically have a little bit skeptical nature, especially, with a lot of the reports. And, a claim of shooting one and we don't have, a body to go along with it for processing, already right off the bat, like anyone else, I would have a problem with that. So I was highly skeptical initially. Besides being a BFRO, I'm also a member of the Olympic Project. Derek Randall's is a good long-term friend of mine, been friends for 1.5 decades, and he had already been involved. There was a tissue piece that was retrieved about 5 weeks later from the purported shooting, and he was instrumental in helping provide that to someone who was doing a DNA study at the time. And he had brought me in, him being in Washington, I'm in California, I'm a little closer, so I'd be able to maybe get up here in this area, be with Justin a little more as he kind of goes through this and this gets navigated. Technically at that time we were waiting for results on a paper, and there was a lot of interviews Justin had to do. And so it was really me kind of coming in and acclimating myself with the situation, getting a lay of the land, and being a little bit of a liaison to him to try to determine the truth.
So about 6 months after the shooting, it was a long time before the snow and everything was able to melt and we were able to get back up there. And so Derek puts together this project, this expedition in July of 2011. And they were all there to find the body.
Derek Randalls had invited myself, my dear friend James Bobo Fay, and a few others, Dr. Meldrum, John Mayachinsky, who's a pivotal figure in Bigfoot world, and also a highly esteemed naturalist, and a few others. We had come up and kind of to interview Justin, talk to him, see the site. At that time, he had already given a piece of the purported tissue in for testing. I think we were naturally excited because if it was a true event, how awesome to go and see where this took place, right? I think that's number one, that we were fairly excited going in. And there was still a possibility of retrieving something at that time. In the claim of the shooting, there was a shot taken and the large subject had gone down to all fours and retreated up into the tree line. Assuming, the story was real, did it survive or did it not? But there was also subsequently a shooting of a juvenile where a body was there and a body was actually placed in a certain area. And it was in a small drainage area below the little hillside where the large subject was shot. It's a little bit of a nasty area to get through, prickly bushes, that type of thing, wet bottomland, clear water running through it, kind of difficult to navigate. And after the purported shooting, there was 7 to 8 feet of snow on the ground within 3 to 4 weeks. So it was going to make it, a laborious event to try to recover anything, but we were definitely up for the task. And we had enough help here to do it.
When I first got to the site, it was actually kind of uncanny. It was almost exactly the way that Justin described it. You know how you get this perception in your brain when somebody's telling you a story and they lay it out for you and you kind of see it, you visualize it. It was almost exactly like I visualized it. Maybe Justin was very descriptive with his analysis of the area and the way that he described it to me. So it was kind of, I drove into a situation that was almost what I imagined. And that kind of put a spring in my step. And I started looking in all the obvious areas. And I am a hunter. I've done some tracking. I've been an outdoorsman my entire life. So I kind of figured, I kind of knew where to look according to the story. If something was wounded in this situation, where would it go? Generally downhill, generally to cover, to a safe place. And so, yeah, I hit the ground running. And his description was very good, very accurate. I'll give him that. My initial impression of Justin when I met him, to be completely honest, was, who's this redneck? He seemed personable. At the time, I found him to be fairly honest, but I had no idea who he was. So I really couldn't have a deep judge of character. I can't say I liked him, but I can say that I was somewhat comfortable around him because I can relate to who he is, because I'm a bit of a redneck myself.
At first, on the first day, I didn't get as much time to talk to him. I got to know him a little bit. We really got to know each other going for a night walk. He's been a hunter his whole life, very highly experienced hunter. So he knows the lay of this land and these mountains really well, but it was a little different from him doing night walks, not being armed and not having, the benefit of light source. And so we really bonded off that. And that was, I want to say, the second night I was here. We were able to spend a lot of alone time together and kind of just get to know each other a little bit. And, I would ask a few questions here and there I was curious about in the story, and he was very forthcoming in sharing them.
We looked through the site vigorously, as you can well imagine, because there was the prospect that Justin had buried the small one under a bush. And so we went down to the exact bush and looked around, and then we actually crawled throughout the entire area. And at one point we found a mound of dirt, which got really exciting because sometimes a cougar or a bear will come across the kill and they'll bury it under a mound of dirt, or they'll dig down a little bit and then bury it for later consumption. So we excavated the mound of dirt, and we actually spent probably 8 hours looking through that area where he had said that they had placed the small one under a bush, to no avail. We looked and looked very hard and found nothing.
Although the members of the 2011 expedition were hopeful that they would find the remains of one of the bodies, ultimately, nothing was found. While disappointing, it didn't come as a surprise to anyone.
Well, when it comes to a body in a forested environment, it's not going to last long no matter what, because predation, I mean, there's cougars, there's bears. So just to say, if this thing would have been shot and bleeding, it would have been putting off a scent. It would have been laying there, and it probably wouldn't have been more than a day before some predator would have grabbed it and either hidden it, consumed it, or drug it away. So it wasn't a big shock to me that it wasn't there. But we did, like I said, we looked vigorously. We looked for blood, we looked for bone, we looked for hair, we looked for anything that could be associated with it.
I harvest animals all the time and hunting, and you leave them in the woods in different places. Like, they're not going to be there 6 months later. Like, that would be crazy. Sometimes you can find a bone, but usually you're going to find like a bone from a cow or something simple. You're not going to find, no one's ever found a bear skull. I mean, no one that I know in the hunting world or anything like that. And no one's found even a dead bear. I mean, you might see one on the side of the road next to a freeway or near a campsite, but other than that, you're not going to see one dead in the wild, generally speaking. So why we didn't find anything, it's like, stuff disappears from the woods right away.
I don't think any of us had the expectation of finding anything just because of the time period that had gone by. We were optimistic, we may find something, and we weren't up here for a long, long time. I mean, we weren't able to do, for instance, a full excavation, of the site. It was more of a gradual one because there were some other priorities here as well. Including there was actually a dog that sniffs for decomposition that was actually brought up here. It was a conduit relationship with Dr. Meldrum. Had brought somebody here that was familiar with the area in the Sierras. And I'd learned something I did not know, that, these dogs are trained. If they're trained to smell human decomposition, it doesn't mean that they're going to react to other animals. They're trained for that specific thing. And so she was going to let the dog, it was a gal, she was going to let the dog sniff around over at the shooting site, but wasn't optimistic that, even if something was there, that the dog would notify us of it. So it was interesting learning that, but we did have that arranged. That was on the last day, I recall.
Everyone that came to the area was like, oh yeah, it's squatchy. Like, hey, this looks right. This is what we're looking at. They're saying there's 100 different reasons. There's 100 different places you could have picked. How could you know to pick an area that is exactly what we're used to seeing? I said, I don't know. Like, I wasn't trying to hoax you guys, because that was always the thing with my story. Either it's just a huge lie and I'm making up the whole thing and I just enjoy the attention or something like that, or it really happened, or I guess that I'm delusional. But there was two of us there. And so after this happened, like, he didn't really want to have anything to do with it, because for the first year or so, he watched things play out. And it started to affect my life really negatively. And he was like, why would I want this? All these people talking bad about you online, death threats, like talking about your family, talking about your kids. Like, why would somebody want that? Like, I would rather never be known. He eventually agreed to do a couple interviews and things like that. But he saw how, since this happened, like, I don't know what the goal would have been, because I haven't like got rich or anything like that, or made really any money. I make more money as an electrician than you do like filming a Bigfoot show.
If by chance I was walking through the woods and I found a freaking gnome or a gremlin and I shot it, there are serious repercussions for shit like that, I'm sure. Or like a chupacabra out in the woods or something ridiculous. Yeah. If people find out, you get in trouble. It ends up turning into all kinds of crazy stories and shitstorms, and that's exactly what happened with all this, if you think about it, which is the reason I try to stay out of it as much as possible. Like, I don't need my family thinking I'm some better who thinks he shot a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
My family doesn't know about any of this. None of them do.
You don't like that word Bigfoot, and you don't like being associated with it.
I don't feel the need to be associated with it. It's fine. Something crazy happened that day. Absolutely. And it is what it is, and it totally could have been a Bigfoot. It could have totally not been a Bigfoot. But I'm also the type of person that I'm not going to bullshit and say I know for a fact it was a Bigfoot 100%. I know for sure it wasn't a Bigfoot 100%. I know what I saw. I saw what wasn't a bear that was in the woods that looked like a person in a bear suit, and we shot it. I don't know what it was, but in that point in time it was, this is probably not a good idea. But then again, if I was the guy in the passenger seat, my instant thing is to jump out the window or jump out the car because it's on my side of the window. Probably would have gone the same way. But I didn't have the rifle, so the whole time it was, don't shoot. That's all it was the whole time, telling him not to shoot. It's not a good idea. And this is all, within 5 seconds. And then there was no convincing him at that point, just as much as there probably would have been no convincing me at that point, because he had the rifle. If I had the rifle, I would have probably done the same thing.
After the initial expedition, I never actually went back to the kill site. But I will say that when I was there, I did my due diligence. We looked extremely well through the area. I would imagine that I probably hiked in a 3-day period approximately 30 to 45 miles. I was on it, and that's all I did for 3 to 4 days, was hike circles, hike perimeters, hike radiuses, which I had a couple interesting things happen during that time. But I wanted to know, I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I mean, this could have been the biggest story in Bigfoot ever. I worked really hard, as well as some other people. I mean, Jeff Meldrum and John Mayanshinsky hiked many miles. Paul Graves hiked a lot of miles. We put the work in and pretty much looked at the area. We canvassed the area hard, to the point where it would have been pointless for me to go back and look more. So I kind of threw all my eggs in that basket, and I hiked my brains out.
The 2011 expedition was Justin's first exposure to the wider Sasquatch community, and I was curious as to what he thought about the people he met both then and in the following years.
So there was a lot of really interesting people that came up, like Paul Graves and Bart and Bobo, these doctors and researchers. Some guys came from Canada, some people came from Wyoming, like all around in Washington. And they came here for this research thing, and I was like kind of expecting like either some government people or some nutty people. And like some of the people are a little different. But I met like people that were really serious about research, like I am about hunting. Like Bart was the one that really, like when I watched him and he's like, oh, he's taking this really serious. Oh, there's something to this. It's not a bunch of nonsense. Because you start meeting these people and in the Bigfoot world, it's like, it's obvious that some people, you're talking to them, that they've experienced what I've experienced. And this is something that are like cows or dogs or horses. When we're talking about them, we're talking about like a real animal. We're not talking about something that's imaginary. Whereas you talk to some people in the Bigfoot world and they're just like kind of on they're aliens and ghosts and whatever. And like, yeah, I'm open-minded, but I'm just talking about something that's real. A lot of Bigfooters are mentally ill. And it's not to say that they didn't have an encounter, but you can see by the way their relationships fall apart, and you can see like the community, and it's an online thing of like people and jealousy and fighting and bickering and lying and hoaxing. It's just, I don't know, there's some pretty cool people out there. And then there's like a bunch of people that need some medication.
The problem with this subject is it's a pretty big epiphany once you realize this creature is real. And, you know, the opportunity is there for somebody to be famous. And not, you know, not famous like Kim Kardashian famous. I'm talking about Neil Armstrong famous. Okay? And who doesn't dream of that, especially when you don't have to do nothing. You don't have to have any talent, any skills or nothing. You just have to produce this creature. And that's a big draw for some people. Now, I have notoriety in my industry, but it's from what I've been able to accomplish. And to me, I've even won a lottery. That doesn't make me special. Lots of people win lotteries. So I have a hard time wrapping my head around why people would get so enthralled just for the opportunity of being famous for having really done nothing at all. It's a big temptation for a lot of people. For me, no, and anybody, and here's good advice. If you ever get conclusive proof of this creature, get it into the public immediately and as quick as you can. Do not try to sell it. Do not try to make money. Just get it out there. If you want a book deal or something, that'll come later. The accolades will come afterwards. So anyways, that was my whole thing with the CR kills. I kind of initiated the whole thing, and then it went to a place that I just didn't want to be.
In some of my discussions with friends who don't take the subject of Sasquatch as anything more than a joke, one of the most common questions I get asked is, why hasn't anyone killed one yet? Surely someone would have shot one by now. If Justin's story is true, then we know of at least 2 Sasquatch that have been shot. But in talking with Ken Walker, I learned that Justin is not the only person to claim to have shot and killed one. And their stories share many interesting aspects with his.
There's a guy in town here that shot a Sasquatch up at Fawcett Lake. He probably killed it from what he said, but it was on the ground. He thought it was the giant bear. And he was just a kid, and he shot it, and it got up, put both hands on the exit wound, and screamed and ran away. And this guy up the road here, they shot one. It approached the kids when they were berry picking. They're natives. The guy saw the Sasquatch standing by his kids. But then, of course, there was my friend who shot the female, and he said that she was laying dead on the ground and she was lactating. The main factor in all of these cases, and there is a fear factor involved that is, the best way to describe it is unreasonable. I remember that trapper, the guy that I knew, my friend, he's one of the scariest individuals you'd ever meet. He said, I'm not afraid of anything. He said, but these things petrify me. And those were the exact words he used. He said, these things petrify me. So I said to him, do you find the fear to be almost induced and unreasonable? And he said, exactly. He said, it's a fear like I don't even want to think we remember it. And my friend who shot the one that ran away, he said the same thing. I said, why don't we talk to somebody about this? He said, have you ever seen one? He said, the look in its eyes when it looked at him, he said, was the stuff of PTSD and nightmares. But that's one of the main threads amongst Sasquatch sightings and incidents is the amount of fear. Now, the trapper said that the creatures that he shot were human enough that he thought he could be charged with homicide or something, or manslaughter. He said they were that man-like,
So a lot of people ask me why I didn't take a picture of it, and it's like, are you going to take a picture after you murder somebody? That's definitely not what you're going to do, is take a picture of a crime, of a thing that you're scared that you just did, freaking out about. That's the last thing you want to do, is take a picture. That's what my mindset was at the time. We definitely didn't want to take a picture and get caught for what we had done, for what I did.
Most people that shoot a Sasquatch and actually stand over it or see it, they leave, they cut their losses. And if you talk to Justin, that was kind of the scenario with them when they shot the little one, is they decided that they didn't want any part of this, and they decided to cut their losses, which makes all the sense in the world. And it's a common thread amongst people who shoot them.
I only had one more question left for Ken. In his opinion, why did Justin open fire on a Sasquatch that day?
Because he could. There's people out there that if they know they can shoot something, they'll shoot it. And it doesn't make them monsters or anything else. There's just people like that. I know a couple guys like that, and they're probably some of the sweetest people that you would talk to. You would never know, but some people, if they know they can kill it, they will kill it. And I don't want to say anything bad about Justin. There's a lot of people that like don't like those kind of hunters. From the story, what happened with Justin, he had his friend with him, and he was one way and his friend was another way, if you remember the story. His friend was horrified by what happened. I know lots of people who told me they don't care how smart the thing is if they see when they're going to shoot it. And I believe them. Yeah.
Why do you like hunting?
I've grown up hunting. It's kind of like when you're born that way. Like I was born being a hunter. You got to be born into this sort of thing. You got to have like a dad that's a hunter. I had a grandpa that was a fisherman, and my dad was a hunter. Then that's what you do on the weekends. You work all week so that on the weekends you can go do something fun. You can go hunting or fishing.
What would you do if you didn't hunt and fish?
I don't know what I would do if I didn't hunt or fish. I've tried golf. I've tried the frisbee golf. It's just boring. I mean, like, hunting's the only thing that's ever made me want to stay in shape or just not be a lazy piece of shit. It's like an excuse to get outside. I feel like when I'm outside, it heals me. I feel like it's where I'm at peace, where I'm at home, is being out in the Sierras. I like this place. It's special, it's different, it's clean. So where I live at, you could drive 2 hours and you could be at the beach, or you could drive 2 hours or you could be in the mountains. And you can shoot right up to Tahoe and you could be where the snow is, or you could go like down to San Francisco, and you could, depending on which way you go. And in the Sierras, there's just something about this place. In Sacramento where I live, it's 100 and something degrees right now, I'm sure. And where we are right now, it's probably 65. It's sunny. It's the same every day up here. The air is cleaner, things are nicer. I like the Sierras because they have bigger deer than where I live, the valley. It's a migratory area. You'll have like a lot of deer that move through during hunting season. So like right now it's archery season, so guys are trying to like shoot a deer with a bow. And that's what I like doing. I like chasing around deer and trying to throw a dart net. If I was to try to say something to somebody to try to convince them that what I'm saying is true, then it's easier when they've been here and they've seen it, because I'm usually like, all right, well, I will tell you about this person that's seen one, and this person that's seen one, and this person that's seen one. All these people that have seen one up here with me. I mean, we're not talking about 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people. We're talking about even more than that. Now it's going to start sounding weird. Then like the bells start to go off in people's heads and they're like, oh, you just see them all the time? No, I'm talking about over the course of 300 nights spent here. Then maybe every 50 nights or so, something happens here and there. And there's been a mountain of evidence. There's a sheep herder. The sheep herder, he's been here for many years. He's from El Salvador. He had a Sasquatch come in, grab one of his sheep, throw it over its shoulder, and just take off running. He said he was so terrified. And he sleeps out here with his sheep, and he's got a big dog and all that, but he doesn't have a gun, I guess.
So would you kill another Sasquatch if you got the chance?
Yeah, 100%, even a baby. Like abortion Sasquatch, whatever, pregnant Sasquatch, yes. And I have said different things to a lot of people when they've asked me that. And I've had people cry and like say, that's where I'm at now. I've been a lot of different people to prove it, just for only one individual, or 2 if they're pregnant. But I mean, that dark, yes, absolutely. Have to be able to prove this. And I'm not convinced that it's something that can be proven. Well, not that it can be proven, but why didn't I take a picture? I'm a pretty logical, reasonable person, and then it's like, but if you do a crime, maybe you don't take a picture of it. And then like, I have questions myself. And it seems like there's always the batteries don't last in the thermal, or the camera didn't record or something every time you almost get real evidence. They're flesh and blood, and you can kill them and they bleed. But I don't know if you can drive them to a news station afterwards. Or maybe you can, but maybe there's 4 left.
I mean, what's the game plan if you shoot and kill one?
Go live on Facebook. I think so. And Instagram and somewhere else. After I send like 10 pictures. Let's send like 10 pictures to 10 people and tell them to send it to 10 people, then go live. To where they can't just make you disappear. Because I think the way that happens is you die in like a drunk driving accident on the way home. And they're like, oh, he was drunk. Well, Justin likes to drink. When in reality, I don't know, they push a button and blow up your car. I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know if it goes that deep, the Sasquatch thing, but the government in general does, when like they can have different agencies give you problems and they can like take away your money, then yeah, something's going on.
In future episodes, I will continue to explore the Sierra Kills story and how it snowballed into a much larger event that still affects the Sasquatch community to this day. However, I want to impart one final thought. I have no doubt in my mind that something happened to Justin. My opinion on what that is or what exactly happened changes from day to day. And the reason for that is because this is innately a human story. And as a result, it carries all the baggage that comes with the people involved. People are not black and white. Their thoughts, ideas, and habits can change throughout their lives. And we're dealing with people with different motivations all coalescing at the same place, at the same time, united for a brief moment for a common goal. We'll see in the coming episodes just how messy these different approaches to the topic can make things, and how public perception can change everything. And that's what makes deciphering the truth so difficult. Because even as I finish this episode, I'm still left with questions and wondering just how things ended up the way they did. And I hope you'll join me on this venture into the mountains of mystery.